Welcome back. This is K24 This Morning. It's the second half of our newspaper review. Don't forget, you can get yourself a copy of your People. They'll be part of this conversation wherever you are across this country, by the way. And the beauty about it is that you don't need a mobile app for this. You don't even need data on your phone. You just need 10 shillings on your phone and the number *550 *4#. And again, the number is *550 *4#. Dial that number and get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. It's brought to you by the People Daily and Safaricom. And right here, we're giving you 250 bob of airtime. Just download your copy of your People Daily, take that screenshot and send it to the number, WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen, and you get your airtime. It's that simple. So just take a screenshot, send it to the WhatsApp number right there, and you get yourself that airtime. 4 have already walked away with their airtime. You could be next. So take that screenshot and send it to us, even as we continue with the conversation right here. First half, speaking about matters politics. Second half, want us to look a bit more into matters economy as we stand right now, because as we know, Corona really ground to a halt every single thing that was going on. And the latest figures from the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics really grim. This can be found even in your Standard on page 6 and 7. It's a special report. Over 1.7 million Kenyans losing jobs as Corona chokes ailing economy. Majority of those out of labor between 20 and 34. So essentially, these are the people who should be out there working and really don't know where to go, are really at pains on what to do at this particular point. And you have a government that at this point is also talking about massive corruption going on and a very disillusioned youth, because they say that they're 70% of the population, but everything bad that happens to them first. And that's why they wonder, how do we remedy this, Joy? Let me start with you, because the data really bad for any country.
You know, having youth bulge is a gift, because the youth are energetic, they're innovative, they still have that hubris of youth, so they can experiment, they can charge forward. Once you get to middle age, here uko na majukumu, and you've got people to take care of. So you are not, when we harness the energy of the youth as a nation, we can go far. But in this country, for some reason, we seem to imagine that the older people are the ones who are better placed to steer this country forward, and we ignore this particular demographic called the youth. With the numbers being so high, and the only opportunity we're seeing is like the ones for kazi mtaani. Not only is good, it puts a few shillings in their pockets, but in terms of experience, in terms of preparation for the future, or meaningful money that can help you build capital to move forward, we don't see that happening. And so in my opinion, as a country, we're not taking advantage of what gift we have in having this amount of youth. The problem is, I think it starts from our education system, where we are trained to go work for other people. We haven't learned to teach our youth how to innovate, how to grow. I'm looking at other countries these days that emphasize, for example, from the education system, learn some STEM. If you're not a person for sciences, get into an arts program, such that it's not the traditional primary school, O-level, A-level, because that's what creates constructive unemployment. When you've got people who are working, but you're working in menial jobs, that's constructive unemployment. It's not employment. But we get to a place where we've got factories, or we've got innovators, people who are creating things, solving problems. That's how we pull ourselves out of it. Where we are right now, like you said, with, for example, in Corona, the numbers that came out about the unemployment levels rising, like you said, majority of those are young people with young families. And we haven't even factored, these are the ones in the formal sector. We haven't factored the ones who are in the informal sector, the smoky sellers, the guys of Mtumba who are no longer working because of this Corona. It's actually a crisis. The other problem with that is that politically, it is actually a petri dish of all manner of things. Because when people are idle, they're broke, they're disgruntled, they're disillusioned, they're seeing this corruption every day, and they've got nothing to do. That is when people fester. And the thing you see next is an eruption. So if I was in government right now, that would be top priority on my desk, on how are we going to solve this case. And it's not for government to create the jobs. It's for government to create an enabling environment such that businesses can thrive again. There was a post by a lady that I saw talking about, she had a water bottling company, talking about all the taxes that she had to pay at the different levels of government, to a level where her company shut down. There is need for us to stop taxing people who are working to death. Let us create incentives. Let us create space. We were told in the BBI report that there was the proposal about a 7-year amnesty for young people in startups. Can such things be implemented now? They don't need the BBI report to pass. all they need is a policy document, because if we don't do it, as a country, we will pay a price for it.
Right.
And when you're talking about the youth in this country that we're in, they're more than us. If us here, I'm talking about the 40s and above. If they decide they're coming after us,
right.
by the way, we'll find that we are at a disadvantage. So
right.
it is a puzzle that needs to be solved very quickly.
Justice, let me come to you on this one, because Joy has just led us into this, because we're at a point where it almost feels like the government is in a really tight position. At one point, they can see what's going on with the unemployment, but they're also at pains to try and meet their revenue targets, so just to move forward as a government. I'm sure very many people have gotten letters from in emails from KRA, just trying to get any source of revenue, every nook and cranny out in there. How does the government reprioritize and try and make sure that they can actually encourage people to open up businesses that have been shut down, so that the ripple effect can actually have more people getting back into some sort of employment?
Well, I think first, I think we should stop the stealing and the looting. That is one, very critical in this country, because the amount of money stolen by the who is who in this country is unimaginable. And I think the sooner we stop this madness of looting and stealing and getting people, out of jobs, because some of the companies, some of the public institutions, because if you watch the story of KEMSA very closely, you realize that sooner or later we will be closing shop in KEMSA, and those are young Kenyans. Those are Kenyans also losing jobs. So I think it's very critical in terms of to stop this massive corruption, so that we at least we can grow our economy. Secondly, I think the policy framework and the legal framework governing this country is a little bit absurd. Recently, we did with a youth from Bomet County make a petition to the National Assembly to amend and look at the procurement law 2015 and it's amended in 2016. Because we are wondering, for example, how do you demand an NCA2 for a contractor to come and do bush clearing? I mean, for heaven's sake, why do you want to give tenders like bush clearing to big-time contractors of this country? Recently, there is a road from Kablong to a place called Mulot, a stretch of 20 kilometers, just to merely do bush clearing, and the contractor was given the road to do bush clearing at the tune of 22 million. I mean, that should have been works that are, in terms of policy framework and legal framework, reserved almost entirely to the young people. And again, in terms of the statutory documents that are demanded from the so-called vulnerable groups, for example, the women, person with disability, and the youth. When you demand audited accounts for 3 years, when you demand the experience of 3 years, when you demand the NCA 3 or 4 from these young people, women, person with disability, when you demand more than 11 statutory documents before someone is given a tender as simple as to do bush clearing. Bush clearing means you only need a panga and your physical presence, your manpower, and you're ready to go to do bush clearing. But if you were to ask for such a kind of a tender in this country today, the amount of regulations and documents that are demanded from these groups, and the groups that I speak particularly are the vulnerable groups, the documentations, I mean, it is beyond imaginations. Even if you were to look for attendant documents to do, I want to repeat again, like bush clearing. Recently, somebody showed me a document that is pages running to 193 pages merely to do bush clearing. Just imagine. And there is a young man, there is a youth, and even more importantly, a woman and disabled. But the amount of regulations, the amount of bottlenecks, the amount of roadblocks put in place of these people to put food on their table, I mean, it's mind-boggling. And I think as a country, we need to relook at our framework, our policy framework, and ensure that ultimately, if we want to say these are vulnerable groups, and we want to at least have them access opportunities and have them access tenders within both the national government and the county government, then really we must look at the regulations. We are over-policed, we are over-regulated as a country, and that is why so many upcoming industries and upcoming companies are going down, is because of layers and upon layers of statutory requirements that we demand, and payments upon payments. KRA, you need to pay a number of institutions for you to get a license to begin running. And once you get a license, you are already running. Again, there are other institutions, the county government, the KRA, other institutions are coming on you, and before you realize, when you do, you want to balance your books, you realize that you'd rather close shop as opposed to really going under and the banks coming for your neck. And therefore, to me, particularly, we need to come down on over-regulations over business in this country, and we need to have the vulnerable groups in this country access opportunities if we were to have more than 70% of Kenyans be part and parcel of nation building.
As you talk about that, don't forget you can actually get yourself airtime right here on the show. We'll be doing that very shortly right here. All you need to do is take a copy of, get your copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. It's only 10 shillings and the number that you need is *550 *4#. Dial that number, download your copy of your People Daily, and once you do that, take the screenshot and send that to the WhatsApp number at the bottom of your screen. Once you do that, send it to us and you could be the one walking away with airtime right here, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. But before I do that, let me bring it back here. Dennis, we'd expect the government right now to be doubling down on austerity measures to make sure that any shilling they can save and probably put that in some sort of direct stimulus to employment, they'd do that. Do you feel they're doing enough as an executive to just cut down all costs and make sure this money can be re-expedited to, such issues, unemployment right now? How do you get all of this youth or most of this youth back on track?
Jeff, if you ask me if the government is doing enough as of now, it means we are saying they're doing anything, which I think they're not.
So they're doing nothing at all?
I think they're not doing anything at all other than the ordinary systems. You have parastatals, let them run the best way they can. You have rogue boards, you can't rain on them, nothing is happening. You see, if you really need an economy to grow or even to stabilize in itself, then you must look at those sectors that really are crucial to the economy, to jumpstart your economy and bring resources and even employ people. Kenya is a largely an agrarian economy. But how is the agriculture managed in Kenya? It's devolved, and yet the funds that are supposed to support the devolution system are not there. It is devolved, and even the county governments do not have proper framework to ensure that the agricultural sector is thriving. At the national level, you have parastatals like ADC and the rest, which are not doing anything. They are largely sleeping. In fact, you will not even remember that they exist because there's nothing they are doing. Mm-hmm. We saw a government pumping a lot of money in is it Garana project or something like that. And after all the money that was sent there, we went to a mega loss because only about 1 million bags were harvested, which was a very small percentage of what was the anticipated income. And you ask yourself, how did they even make that choice to go and irrigate, a desert so that you produce maize? Yet we have farmers in Trans Nzoia and the larger part of Rift Valley where maize go bad. So government is not doing anything. And we are not going to come out of it. To make it worse, this particular government, for the last 7 or 8 years, has had the highest number of scandals in terms of theft of public resources, that we have a challenge even in terms of picking up. In fact, Kenyans are so resilient. It's a shock that we are still surviving and managing our lives with all these things, with the economy closed down and everything. Okay,
I want to take a short pause on that particular point. We have a couple of winners right here as far as the airtime is concerned. Let's have that up on screen very quickly. Caller reading and following from Eldoret. He sent in his copy of his downloaded paper right there, and he gets himself 250 shillings worth of airtime, all courtesy of Safaricom. We have another one right there, Alvin from Kitale as well, getting his airtime, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. And you have one more. Let's have that up on screen. There we go. Kevin from Kamukuywa in Bungoma. Well, Kevin gets himself airtime as well, all courtesy of the PD and Safaricom. You could get yours as well. Just screenshot your downloaded e-copy of your PD, send that to the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen and get airtime on that. As you talk about where we are right now, and you go and look at the front page of the Star, tenders, how state agencies defied Uhuru. Of course, Uhuru, during his virtual conference, spoke about the fact that he wants accountability to especially what's happened in the KEMSA tenders, wants to know all the companies that actually got this and what they procured for this particular instance. How do you deal with this issue of this opacity every single time when you try to find out how things are working and how corruption takes place? Because before anything happens, the law is very clear, the procurement processes are there, we have a procurement authority, and then once the looting takes place, oh no, they weren't on IFMIS. Now we realize that this had happened. How do you deal with this? Because we always realize there's a problem after the fact.
You know, there's the president, I think, has tried to do his best in terms of the pronouncements and the directives and the memorandas. He has, because first there was the portal. Remember the first time of GOK delivers. There was this portal, and the instruction was very simple. Every single tender awarded must be uploaded on the portal. The companies must be also uploaded. The directors must also be uploaded, and it should be accessible for everyone to see. And this was a directive to both the Treasury and to the various ministries and parastatals that are using the system. Did anybody obey? No. People just ignore what the president said. Then what Dennis is talking about, what has this government been doing in terms of even trying to respond to the situation? The president has declared, is it twice, that has declared economic stimulus packages and said this goes to this goes to this. I wish we would see an audit to see, did the enabling ministries and parastatals actually follow what the president announced in terms of economic stimulus packages? So he's in a position where he's trying to do his best to make all these pronouncements, but everybody else who's working under him is just actively undermining him. They don't listen to anything he says, or when the people are doing the speeches and the whatnot, they have not done the legwork to ensure that what the president is saying is what is on the ground. There is actually a disconnect. And when you see that, then we have the issues now we're talking about, where we have a situation that the government is in a place where we need to pinch every penny. We need to make Kenyans believe that we are being accountable. Forget even about Kenyans. When you've got a situation where even donors now are opting to channel the donor money directly to the beneficiaries rather than using government. It's ridiculous. Where one of the statements that every time a minister is receiving something from a donor community, they all have these statements, and we shall account for each and every penny. That ought to be a given. It's not something that you have to give us assurances. We give them assurances that. So I think Kenya needs a reset button. There's something that we're talking about in the BBI report. Now, this report, whether or not it goes referendum or not, there are conversations that were had there that make sense. One of the things that I saw was issues about shared prosperity, national ethos. As in, Kenyans just have bad manners. Because right now, Dennis is talking about how it's the leaders who are behaving badly. But we have no assurances that if he and I were in that situation, we would not behave the same. Why? Because we all have this certain, it's like a shared disease where if you see an opportunity, you just go and grab. Take it. And it's given us such a bad name that even our neighbors treat us with a lot of disrespect and suspicion. When our truckers arrive at the border with COVID certificates, and I told you know what, in Kenya you guys are buying the certificates, we are testing you afresh. That tells you, even our neighbors don't believe that we are doing the right thing. I think as Kenyans, we need to hit the reset button. We need to just go back to the basics of life. And one of the things that we have lost as Kenyans is shared value system, where theft is theft and everybody disdains it. Everybody disregards you as a thief. Where hard work pays and is rewarded, where honesty pays and is rewarded, where children are taught the value of working for your shilling and not entrepreneuring to make a quick kill. But unless this is modeled from the top, it's like COVID. The people believed in it until they saw the leaders not believing in it, and now nobody believes in it anymore. Unless we model it from the top, we will say one thing, but what people will do will be the exact opposite. Okay.
Justice, let me come to you on this one, because as you talk about what needs to be done from the top, some people are saying what we really need to see is someone big fall from the top, and once this happens and becomes set as a precedent, then from there people might see corruption really doesn't pay. And that's what we want to see, the examples of those who have managed to loot millions or billions actually do the time and pay for the crime. And then from there, it won't be as appealing to everyone else. Is that how we hit the reset button on this one?
I don't think. You see, the competitive politics, makes the president a byproduct of a series of cartels and corrupt individuals who fund these highly expensive campaigns. So all over the world, the presidents, including the first world countries, some of these presidents are as a byproduct of the competitive processes that demands a lot of funding from some of the dubious characters. So at the end of the day, when you do a discourse analysis, you realize that presidents are really, are owned by cartels. And by the way, people must begin to appreciate the fact that presidencies all over the world do not run their countries. Countries all over this world are run by faceless, unelected, unaccountable cartels, almost all over the world known as the deep state. Realize even recently, a country as big and as huge and as powerful as United States, the cartels were able to convince the president of that time that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And of course, the president bombed Iraq back to Stone Age because the cartels and the machinery they owned were able to convince the president of the United States that it was necessary to bomb Saddam Hussein because he was in possession of some dangerous weapons. Once they were done with the war, they realized that Saddam Hussein was not in possession of weapons of mass destruction. But then again, the deep state had convinced the president. So all over the world, the president there is so much. We have seen the president issue edicts after edicts, directions after direction, and nothing much seems to be going on because, as I said, and I want to repeat emphatically that generally all over the world, the presidents are almost in some of these African countries the PR managers of the deep state. They just come and issue edicts and go back, and the deep states continue with the business as usual. So really, we do not expect much from presidents all over this world because the presidents are byproduct of very deep-pocketed characters who sponsor their elections, and ultimately all over the world the presidents are beholden to these characters. A few may be able to do it, but generally more than 80% of the presidents and even prime ministers. Look at even Israel. You see the prime minister of Israel is in court because of corruption. He has friends. Look at South Africa. I'm sure you've been following all these presidents that have gone out of office have got some dubious characters associated with them because these are the people who were able to fund their campaigns and enable them ascend to power. So generally, in my submission, I think yes, there is much. The one thing we have the hardware, which is the Constitution. That can be used to fight corruption. But what we lack in this country, and that we must emphasize, is the software, the ethos, the culture, the values. There's not so much the Constitution in itself can be able to do if we do not have the software. And the software in this particular context is the values that we espouse.
Okay, Justice, let me bring it to studio as well on that one as well. Okay, Justice, let me bring it to studio very quickly. We have 30 seconds on this one, Dennis, because it seems like at this particular point it's a values issue. Everybody says because even when you talk to these unemployed youth, they just want to get a chance to get into office and do what they've seen people do. You get in, you get the tender, you don't supply, you get your money, you leave. How do we change our value system very quickly?
I want to just mention that, you see, your manners was not developed because you went to school. You were heavily influenced by how your parents raised you. Mm-hmm. So much of who you are, who we are, is about my mother and my father and that tender years, because that is what made me who I am. That is the stage where we need to take care of all issues. And let us give merit where it deserves. Let people appreciate that I can be a professional and I can earn out of being professional, and I do not need to do, these entrepreneur issues, and right. I steal, and I have to know somebody to give me a tender. Okay. And that can be done, and probably then I need to answer what Joy said. Yes, if I was elected into office today, I'll do something very different from what the rest are doing. Because remember when we had the DPP coming into office, we all had our doubts whether he's going to do anything different from what the predecessors have done, considering the state capture of those particular offices. Okay. And if you ask me today, we could have all manner of arguments, but the DPP has attempted to depart from previous actions. Okay,
fine. You wait and see when that moment comes, Brother Dennis. Asante sana for that.
Vote for Dennis when he runs.
That's why we end up on newspaper review at this particular point. Thank you so much, Dennis Anyonka, for being part of the show. Joymdivo, thank you so much for your time. On the conversation via Skype was Justice Minor. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation as well. Justice, asante sana for being right here on the show. And of course, for you and the feedback that you've sent right here on the show, all courtesy of your feedback on Twitter, on WhatsApp as well. Keep them coming in. And don't forget, every single morning right here, you get a chance to walk away with airtime, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. The number that you need, *550 *4#. Once again, the number is *550 *4#. We have our last three winners. Let's have them up very quickly. As we have it right there. Let's see who we have. Davy from Nairobi right there. That's our first, another winner that we have. Who else do we have? Of course, we're talking about 250 shillings worth of airtime for you just for sending your screenshot of your downloaded copy of your PD. Let's have the next winner. Zipporah watching from Nairobi as well, loving the show and has her own copy of the PD's Radio Phone. And the last winner this morning that we have, we'll have that up even as we wind up. Claudia from Chwele, Bungoma. Well, Claudia, you wind up the winners list this morning. It could be you tomorrow, so make sure you download your copy and send it to us on the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen. We wind the show right here as far as the newspaper review is concerned. Take a short break. On the other side, we get interactive. Good morning.